talk a little bit today about the National Science Foundation's Dear Colleague letter that came out last year, which was called Citizen Science and Crowdsourcing Public Participation in Engineering, PPER, which is the term that the National Science Foundation is more comfortable with than citizen science, which was brought up before because of that sort of exclusivity of who is a citizen. And so the Dear Colleague letter, it's a kind of solicitation, it's a more focused solicitation, came after John Holdren, who's the science advisor to the president, wrote a memo about crowdsourcing and citizen science, asking the agencies, or telling the agencies maybe, to get their act together and to build capacity. And so it was really easy for the Bio Directorate and the Geological Science Directorate to do that because they have a long history of organic processes that bring citizen science to the top. And as I listened to today over and over and over again, all I heard was geological science and bioscience projects, and the engineering projects are not clear because they don't really exist. So we tried to build capacity by writing this Dear Colleague letter. And the engineering directorate did a joint process with CBET, which is the division that I sit in, which is Chemical, Biological, Environmental, and Transport Systems, and CMMI, which is Civil, Mechanical, Manufacturing Innovations. So they're two very specific kinds of engineering, and they're not necessarily big-scale infrastructure, but small chemical reactions, pollution questions, and sustainability questions. And we wanted to make it as broad as possible, but answer some real big questions that relate to the data quality that came up before, because since it's not really been done before, how do you know that the data is valid? And for all of the work that my colleagues have done, engineering still hasn't been tested in that way. So it asks for four things: reliability, validity, and trustworthiness of the data, underlying theories and methodologies that shape citizen science and crowdsourcing, new methods and technologies for improved data collection, and then CBET specifically, we allow data collection, which CMMI didn't allow. But we also try to push the engineers a little further and ask them to think about the social sciences when creating an engineering project. And one of the reasons we did that was because there seems to be a long history of thinking that engineering and social and people are not connected. But especially in citizen science projects, you're not only asking citizens to help you, but you might be doing research on them. So we really wanted them to think about the communities they were working in and try to step away from top-down approaches. So we funded 13 awards, all under $100,000, which in NSF is a pretty small grant. And we funded supplements, which means you already had a grant, and we funded eagers, which are untested, pilot-like grants that allow you to do things that might have a big impact but are not proven to do that. So what was interesting in CBET was that we got 4 kinds of grants, which you can't see. So water was the biggest, and that has to do mostly with water quality and pollution. Air is the second biggest, which was also air quality and pollution. There's disease, which was interesting that it's so small. And then this one other happens to be Michael Land and Darlene Cavalier, who were looking at a taxonomy of tools, which we thought was important. So relating back to those four sort of containers, we were really happy to see that, all 4 were represented, that there was this diversity in kinds of approaches to doing citizen science and engineering, and then testing what that really meant for the field. So in terms of validity, new theories, and new technologies. And if we look at them per grants, there's just a couple things I wanted to point out. So the first is that when it comes to water, you can sort of see that they were testing data validity and reliability. And what that meant in practice was that they weren't using new tools and they weren't refining tools. They were using existing tools, and most people were comparing different kinds of populations using tools to do research. So if we give the same population the same tool, but we give them different instructions on how to use this tool over time. So added help, we give them a place to call, we meet with them 3 more times. What's the difference in data collection quality? Another example was vestedness. So if you're part of a community that cares about the place that you're testing, do you stay in the project longer than someone who just sort of volunteers and is there once in a while, or lives near there but doesn't actually care? So water kind of already has pretty good tools. But when it came to air, people were testing new methods and technologies, which came up here a bunch of times, that air is a little bit more complicated. And with air, they were testing new technologies, but they were also testing data collection. So if we have a new technology, how will it collect data? Will we get this stuff? Because we still don't know, because we don't really trust any of the existing techniques. And so it's sort of interesting to see it in that way. And this is just a taste, and it's only 13 awards, so it's not like a sample of all engineering research. But it's sort of the beginnings of getting the discipline to think about how they can incorporate citizen science into their work. And the last thing I just want to say is, even within these awards, there's a diversity between those who are researchers and have a project that can only be answered by data collected through citizens. So things that they themselves, as an individual with a couple postdocs, really can't put together, versus another kind of project that is people who've been working in an area, see a problem, and get the community together to think about research questions that are pertinent to them, and then rising the citizen sciences up from that. So there's these two kinds of ways to approach it that we saw in engineering, and everybody's very excited to see what happens from these projects.